Okay, we are back for round two, for part two. We had some technical difficulties there, but we only lost like a minute of footage, so you didn't miss much from the end of part one. And I got my drink, so I'm ready to go. It's bourbon. It's bourbon tonight. Um, all right. I have an idea. I have a couple ideas as to what types I think you might be, but I want to really kind of get into much deeper territory to try to really make sure that I'm right. Um, that my guess is right, or at least, I mean, I say right, but I mean like I want it to be a good guess. Is what I'm saying. Um, oops. Hold on 1 second. All right. Would you say that the word charismatic describes you?
Yeah,
What's it?
in ways. Yeah, in ways.
Yeah.
hmm
And what? How would you articulate to me your brand of charisma?
Well, starts off with a bit of comforting. Just comfort the people. Ask them questions that I like to hear. Necessarily, make them speak about themselves. And uh, say if there's something that I wanted to get out of someone, or just an objective in general.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'd be as charismatic as I can to get it. So it would just be being nice and generally listening, asking the right questions, and that's
Okay.
practically the charisma that I carry.
Are you good at telling jokes like on the fly?
Yeah, on whim, yeah.
So if I put you on the spot, you could tell a good joke?
Probably not. It'd have to be in context.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um, you couldn't even shoot out a good like yo mama joke or something?
Oh, maybe actually. Actually, yeah, I can shoot out a Yo Mama
Give
joke.
me a good yo mama joke.
Your mom was so dumb, she tried to put M&Ms in alphabetical order.
Nice. I like it. All right. Let's talk a little bit about memory because a lot of different types have different relationship with their own memory and how what their preference is on how much they're going to rely on their memory or when they're going to rely on their memory or how they use their memory.
Yeah.
So, could you just paint a picture for me and you can be as literal as you want or you can be metaphorical as you want, but give me an idea of like what it's been like for you with the memory that you have. How do you use it? Where do you struggle? Where do you excel?
Um, honestly can't. I honestly have no idea. It's like with memory to me, I'd say I have an extremely good memory
Mhm.
for like things that happened in the past. Like
Mhm.
a good example is I remember when I was 5 years old,
Mhm.
and we had this group activity, and this was a memory activity as well, where the teacher would put out like roughly around 7 to 10 things out on the floor,
Mhm.
and we would have to memorize all of it and just try say everything that uh we well everything that was out on the floor pretty much. We had to remember all of it when it was taken away. So I would always pretty much excel at that. Like I'd always be like winning at that. I'd
Okay.
win at the memory games.
Okay. And what about like could you tell me in detail like what you did yesterday at lunchtime like to the point where you can like could you try to recreate that for me? No?
Probably can't. No,
You want to
I
try?
can't. Uh, I I just remember maybe making food. It could have been the day before, but I remember it could be yesterday or the day before that I was making food,
Mhm.
and that's pretty much the only thing I can remember was just not necessarily making the food, it was eating the food.
Okay. Um, what about memory of uh, information?
Like just remembering things in general.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't have anything to back this up, but I think it's like my perception of it is that like you can be good at remembering certain kinds of information and bad at
Hmm.
remembering other kinds of information. And like you might be bad at remembering what you had for lunch yesterday, but you might be really good at reading a bunch of stuff and like storing it away.
Yeah, that's probably more to the point of time. Like, uh, say if I were to read something, I'd be able to remember that one. Like, remember that more than I would be able to remember the actions that I made yesterday or the day before.
Okay.
Like, just anything that I learn will always pretty much stick with me. Like, even the mistakes I make, I know what not to do next time.
Sure.
Just, or even if I learn something about myself that I didn't know beforehand,
Mhm.
then yeah.
So, do you rely on your experience a lot when it comes to getting yourself out of trouble, solving problems, etc.? Like, are you using your experiences as like, well, I know this is different this time, or I know it's like what I did last time, or it's like what I did 3 times ago, or something like that. Like, is that a bit? Is
Not
that
really.
no?
It's
How does
just
it work for
like
you?
when I learn something, like say if I make a mistake
Mhm.
and then I learn from it, then
Mhm.
I don't think of like, oh, I'm not going to do it like this. It's just I'm just going to do it like this, just with no baggage behind it.
Okay. So you hold on to the learning, but
Other stuff, yeah, pretty
not
much.
the memory of what happened necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Um, could you see yourself being a caretaker for somebody?
No.
No. Would do you think? Why is that? Do you think? What?
Well, I don't like doing that, I guess.
You don't like doing it. Okay. Um, could you? So it's not like you naturally fall into that role is what we're talking about, right? It's because you don't naturally gravitate into a caretaker kind of role.
Could say I can, but like it's not necessarily something I want to do. I could see myself do something like that.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like it would be your
Yeah,
first
yeah.
choice or whatever. Um, would the people in your life say that you are a very reliable person or a bit scattered?
Scattered.
Okay. And so would they say that you are more consistent or inconsistent?
Inconsistent.
Okay. And when it comes down, I mean, everybody does some degree of planning in their life. Sometimes they plan more short term. Some people like to plan like 10 years down the road. Some people do a little of both. Um, how, let's say, how obsessively do you plan?
Uh, well, say if I were to go out with my friends,
Hmm.
I'd like to know what we're doing, so it gives me a general idea.
Okay.
But if something spontaneous happens, then I don't really care about it at all. I just go with the flow pretty much.
Okay.
But I'd like to know what we're doing before we go out, just to know that, just to see if I want to do that or not.
Okay. Got it. And what's the determining factor you're using when you decide whether you want to do something or not?
Uh, I would say it depends on what I've been doing. Say if I was just, if like in 3 weekends in a row I've just been playing games or something,
Hmm.
it would be, I don't know, nice to maybe go out and go spend time with like friends. Then I would force myself to do it because it's like I would say it's unhealthy for me to stay so isolated for so long.
I see. I see. So you're doing it out of personal health, kind of. You're doing it. You're saying this is not a healthy move for me
Pretty
to
much,
keep.
yeah.
So it's so when you say that you want to do it, it's not like it's coming from this burning desire but it's more like, hey, like this is not good for my health.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it pretty much.
Yeah. So it's like more reasonable. Um, okay. So on that topic, do you think that you tend to be kind of reclusive?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So if you could retain being healthy and do it, would you just never have any human contact ever again? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I could honestly.
Okay. Um, and I guess I have a pretty good idea of what type you are, and it's really the type that I kind of thought you were, but I just wanted to, I just kind of wanted to like double, triple check. But I'll go ahead and just maybe ask a few more questions just to.
Hmm.
I think I figured out your type a lot quicker than I normally figure out other people's types, but maybe it's because I know other people who have your type.
Yeah.
So, let me ask a few other questions. Physical activity. What is your relationship with?
I hate it. I hate any
You hate
physical
it.
activity. Yeah.
Okay. So you'd rather be a brain in a vat, is what you're saying. What you're telling me.
Yeah,
If you
pretty
could.
much. Anywhere where I can like just not do anything
Yeah.
besides the most like little movement as possible, even if it's
Yeah.
just my handwriting or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's enough physical movement for me.
Okay. Okay. So are you like a walking encyclopedia? Would that be a way of
I
describing
like
you?
fun facts.
You like fun facts?
Yeah, I can
Are
tell
you
you some
like
fun
always
facts.
are you always handy with a fun fact? Like if something
I'd
happens, you can
I'd say so.
you can pull
Did
it
you
out
know
of the.
butterflies taste with their feet?
What's that?
Did you know butterflies taste with their feet?
I think I might have actually known that, but it's not something I would have thought about like unless you mentioned it. It's not something I keep in my forefront of my brain. Yes, that is a weird fun fact. So are you probably good with you're probably good at like trivia night, right? Going to the bar and doing trivia night?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I want to ask, but I mean I pretty much know what your type is. So I guess what I'll do is we'll do the reveal and then we can talk about it. Do you think that I think
Yes.
do you think that I will get your type right?
Mhm.
And do you confidently know what your type is already?
Well, not. I wouldn't say confidently. I'd say there's possibilities.
Possibilities.
Yeah.
And but do you have a good hunch of what you think I'm gonna say?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay. I'll make sure I write it down here so I can have it written down already. Okay. So I have this little piece of paper here. You can't see it. It's just scribbles on this side, but it's on the other side. So what type do you think that I'm gonna say that you probably are?
INTP?
We agree. So yeah, you're probably an INTP.
Yeah.
I definitely went through the whole process of narrowing that down by figuring out what cognitive preferences on like which axes you were on. So first I figured out extroverted feeling, introverted thinking. That was coming out like very strongly to me. Um, I wasn't sure on the style of the style of intuition that you preferred until I ran um, the convergence points test, which is tell me five things that these three things have in common, which is a test of introverted intuition, really, because it's a test to determine how universally you see things and how much you see the overlapping or maybe nested relationship of everything. Um, Whereas extroverted intuitives kind of struggle with that test because they um, don't necessarily see everything connected in quite the same way that introverted intuitives do. They see things as connected like a lightning bolt is connected to the different tendrils of the lightning bolt, but not necessarily connected in the same way that a constellation is connected or something like that.
Yeah.
So that led me to think, and you did much better on the extroverted intuition test, which was the cup question. Um, you were able to quickly ideate. I don't do very well on the extroverted intuition test. I'm an introverted intuitive.
Yeah.
If you ask me five unconventional uses of something,
Can I ask you that question?
you can ask me that question. Come up with it. Yeah.
What are 5 unconventional ways to use a pen?
All right. I mean, I want to say you could stab someone with, but it's the obvious answer always. You could turn it into a bow and arrow and shoot the pen. You could break the pen open and use the ink to paint something. You could. Um, you could melt the metal in the pen down and turn it into a trinket. You could. Shit. So this is the point at which I would struggle, and it probably would take me a few more minutes to think of the four and five. So just to give you
Yeah.
an idea of like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty good. I think my extrovert intuition is pretty good, but not as good as somebody who prefers it. Because
Yeah.
I do use it a lot in creative work as a designer, but it's not my go-to. So I don't
Yeah.
really gravitate towards work where I have to do like a ton of that. But I certainly do enjoy doing it in projects, but it's usually introverted intuition. I'm usually going for like much slower, methodical kind of intuition. Um, yeah. So any questions you want to ask me? Open questions. You can ask me anything you want.
All right. What determines that? Well, what's your type?
I'm an INFJ.
What determines that you're an INFJ?
Well, according to MBTI, it has to do with cognitive preference. So,
Hmm.
in the case of the INFJ, it's preference for introverted intuition and extroverted feeling. So, the way it manifests for me is being an introverted intuition dominant means to prioritize. I hate to say it this way. It's gonna sound so pretentious, but prioritize the void, I guess. It's sort of like always looking into the dark places. Always, it's almost seeing ideas visually. You have insights and you can turn them around in your head and see all, like as if it was a diamond. You can see all the facets and the intricacies. You can examine an idea from all different angles, and you can find its weak points. You see how everything is connected. You think in universal terms. You are strongly connected to the third eye and your own sense of intuition and inner voice, kind of. And you really kind of live a life of like waking sleep, where um, you're on a different plane of conceptual thought than most people are on. Um,
And what determines that?
I don't know, genetics, or I'm not sure.
Not necessarily the genetics, like the thought itself. How do you know that your thought is on a different plane than somebody else's?
Well, it may not be, but what I mean to say is, by observation and talking to other people, you can get a sense for what people are thinking about, or what their way of thinking is, and
I can understand that.
you can get a sense for how you think in contrast to how they think.
Yeah.
And you start to realize, wait a second, I see things way more convergently than they do. I see things way more universally than they do. I'm speaking in way more universal terms than they are. So it took me a long time, it took me over 30 years, and eventually discovering the MBTI and then digging into it to start to get a handle around like, why the fuck am I so weird compared to most of the people that I run into. Like sometimes I meet another weirdo, but most people, not in the MBTI community, but most people out in everyday life, are much more focused on the externalities of life. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
and I struggle with that because I am never looking. I'm always reading between the lines. I'm always thinking about what's below the surface, and I'm always interested in the mysteries and the hidden places and the secret things. So that's great for research. That's great for building ideologies and abstract thinking and following chains of thought down. Being an INFJ, you prefer introverted thinking too. So that's where INFJs and INTPs have a lot in common is they build this internal logical architecture in their heads of the structure of things, and they understand. They put understanding on such a high pedestal, and they cherry pick data, which is not a good thing. But I mean, but having NI and using NI and TI is great because you cherry pick the data, but then you have an insight and then you organize it, and then so there's a push and pull kind of between irrational and rational, which is useful. So I start with very irrational thoughts, but then I have this rational part of me that's organizing those thoughts and kind of saying, wait, let's fact check things, and let's go and like look at some research and figure out how it all fits together. So and then extroverted feeling, is it's sort of, INFJs like kind of to a large degree kind of wear their feelings on their sleeves. It's very easy to affect us emotionally. We're very tapped into other people's feelings, and um, I was bullied as a child, and I so much wanted the approval of my peers, and I was so overwhelmed emotionally by being bullied and things, and yeah, it was because I wanted to be approved. I wanted to fit in. I wanted other people to like me, and it was devastating that that wasn't the case. And that's something that extroverted feelers are really. That's something all extroverted feelers deal with, which is this sense of wanting approval and wanting other people around them to like them, and it's not that introverted feelers never feel that way, but that's not a priority for them. Like really, it's not. It's much lower priority whether or not someone else emotionally approves of them. You know what I mean? They will be more concerned with whether, extroverted thinking. They're going to be more concerned with, do we all agree? What do the experts say and things like that. That's kind of the long answer, I guess, longish answer of why I'm an INFJ, or what being an INFJ means cognitive preference wise.
Hmm.
I don't know if that opens up any other questions, but I mean, I like answering questions. I spend all this time asking questions. So if you have any other questions you want to ask, I would
Yeah, I'm
love.
trying to like go back and forth, but you pretty much answered the ones that I could think of whenever I asked them at the time.
So, all right. So I think this video is pretty straightforward. I think you're probably an INTP, and but the people watching can sound off in the comments if they disagree, but I don't think anyone would probably disagree. I think
I
you
was
probably.
typed by somebody else as well, and they gave me INTP.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it might just be that you really strongly kind of exhibit the traits of what is kind of characteristically thought of as an INTP, and that just might be why people can.
What, just like the stereotype?
What's that?
The stereotype of an INTP?
Yeah, or like, I guess I would say like the most obvious manifestations of those cognitive preferences. It's like they're kind of out on display quite a bit,
Yeah.
and that makes it easier, you know,
Would you
because
say that's a healthy or unhealthy thing?
it could be an unhealthy thing actually. It's usually better to have more cognitive balance. If it's a little harder to type you, sometimes that can mean you're a little healthier because you're using other cognitive functions that don't necessarily aren't your go-to.
Yeah.
So you could work on thinking more convergently. You could think about extroverted sensing. There are videos on YouTube about developing your NI, developing your SE, whatever. When it comes to introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, you know, you can work on being more in tune with your own feelings. You can try to feel out your own emotional landscape. You know, for me as an extroverted feeler, I I experienced a lot of growth as a person when I sat down with a journal and wrote down every single feeling I was feeling as a page. Of course, I had to do it logically. I had to logic through my feelings, I hate to say, but I had to write down every single one of my feelings on a page and then go and look online and find how to deal with X feeling. And then I would write in the page. It was a non-linear journal. It wasn't, day one, but it was like depression or something. I don't know, whatever. I was feeling something, and I identified that I was feeling that way, and I would go online and I would look up articles about that and write down the bullet points of like the best advice that I could find on there that worked, that I knew would work for me or that I could think about. Of course, cherry picking more data, right? But I cherry picked my own data and I figured out, and I wrote this all down in a journal. And I don't go back to that journal even at all, hardly. But the sheer act of doing that was an it was a threshold that I passed. I consider it as impactful of a threshold as like other major times in my life where I moved to the next step as a person. Like that was a just doing that thing took me to the next. I feel like took me to the next stage because I don't necessarily have a good handle on my own feelings too well. Um, until it's too late or until it's yelling in my ear, I feel this way or such and such. But usually I have to like kind of like I said, I have to kind of logic through my feelings and figure out what I'm feeling and make sense out of it, and then be like, why am I feeling that way or whatever. It's hard to turn it off. And So that could be something you could do to uh, get in touch with your own feelings and use a little bit of introverted feeling. It's it's more like you're still using extroverted feeling, to be honest, but it's more like you're using introverted thinking, but you're using introverted thinking in such a way that you're going to get in touch with your own feelings. So
Mm.
it's kind of like you're kind of compensating. You're using a couple of cognitive functions that you normally use in a certain configuration to compensate for not using this other, you know, oh, I don't feel in touch with my feelings. But at least if you can understand your feelings, that's kind of good enough. Um, and then extroverted thinking. Well, you and I probably would both struggle with this one, which is being able to build a methodical plan for something, and like building a plan towards a goal, or like being able to trust expert advice without cherry picking everything. That's a hard thing to do. I want to cherry pick everything. I want to criticize everything. I don't want to trust just because some so and so says something that's true. But sometimes it's the most efficient way to go. And there's a reason ENTJs and ESTJs are so successful. So, it's a hard thing to do to force your hand to try to be more focused on extroverted thinking, but it will make you a more rounded person if you can tap into that and use it sometimes when it's the right time to use it. So maybe
Can
that's
you hear me?
helpful. Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright, sweet. My mic disconnected.
Oh, no worries. So I don't know if that was helpful at all, or useful,
Yeah,
but
it is for sure.
maybe something to think about. And I won't say that I've gotten there yet, but I mean, I made some progress, is the way I would say it. I made some progress, so I know it works. Um,
I mean, if you know your problems and everything, then it would be easier for you to fix.
yeah, right. And sometimes it's not even always this. Sometimes it is a problem. Sometimes it is like this thing is crippling me. But sometimes it's like I'm not running at max efficiency or something like that. Like I could be doing this better, or I could be handling this situation, these kinds of situations better, or whatever. You know, being an introverted thinker is a boon in the sense that you you are focused on the internal. I don't want to say efficiency, but sort of like the efficiency of your logic, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, is my logic doing me a service or not? Like, is it working for me or not?
Yeah.
that's kind of that's kind of a that's kind of a way that you can use introverted thinking to achieve some level of extroverted thinking, is to say, is my logic being effective? Is my logic getting me anywhere? So that may be a way that you can kind of sneak your way around and use some extroverted thinking, is to ask
That
yourself.
definitely gives me insight.
Good, cool. Well, that's what you get for the free tier. That's the free tier right there.
How much is the premium tier?
I don't know. I don't have a premium tier, so you have to go see us, Joseph. I don't know. All right. Well, if you don't have any other questions, I guess we could wrap it up.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you. Um,
Likewise.
Good. And and I have a Discord channel for typology gifts. So if you want to join the Discord channel, I
Yeah.
will. You can get your INTP flare on there or whatever, and whatever. Talk to a
Do you
few
have a
people.
link?
Yeah, I'll give you the link. I'll post the link in the description too for people who are watching the video. So,
Alright.
all right, cool. Well, thanks a lot. I'm gonna say your name right, Crahs. Did I say your
Yep.
name? Okay. Thanks, Crahs. I appreciate it.
No
And
problem.
to those watching, I will see you on the interwebs. Peace out.